So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All righty, let's get our slides set up here and click through. So thanks everybody for joining. Hope you really enjoyed the keynote. Let me know if any issues with the audio here, but should be all set and ready to dive in. We've got 3 of our customers here, so I'll just kind of leave it to the 3 of you to introduce yourselves briefly. We'll have a chance to talk through your orgs, your teams, how everybody's using Front, but just want to let everybody say hello before we dive in.
All right, I'll go ahead and kick off. I'm Todd Kurgan, VP of Customer Excellence at MNX Global Logistics. Nice to meet everybody.
Matt, I'll pick you next.
I'm Matt Patrick, Director of Customer Success at Instructure.
And my name is Joe Daggar. I'm the Vice President of Technology and Enablement for a company called PuzzleHR.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Really excited to learn more about how your teams are leveraging all the AI functionality we've released so far, as well as just how you're thinking about AI more broadly. Just before we dive in, go ahead and add questions in the Zoom Q&A widget. If anything comes up along the way, comes to mind, just go ahead and type that in real time. We have a helper behind the scenes who will be helping surface those up to our panel at the end, as well as after we wrap up, if we run low on time, we have a community forum going for Frontlines on our main Front community site. So you can head over to community.front.com and you'll see a banner for that on the homepage there and can ask any follow-up questions that you have if we're not able to get to them all in real time. So with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in. We'll follow the same order here. Todd, would love to hear a little bit more about yourself, your company, and how your teams are leveraging Front.
Yeah, so MNX Global Logistics is obviously just that, a global logistics company. The teams that I oversee are on multiple different centers across 3 different continents. And some of those teams span team members across different continents. So depending on the customer need, they may send in an email inquiry requesting moving a shipment out of Europe. So the person on the team that handles those shipments out of Europe would jump in, and then as it progresses into maybe the US, then the US team member can take over that conversation. So it allows us to leverage our teams across vast different areas and continents around the world to give that customer this seamless kind of experience with the team. We're using Front primarily for that reason, but obviously with the AI, as you can imagine, once those handoffs happen, there's quite often a lot of stuff that happened on that email that the team members that are taking over that shipment, that situation, are not familiar with. And so one of the things my team loves is the summary of the conversation, because then when they take that over, they can get a very quick, brief overview of everything that's happened with that customer. They can see whether that customer seems to be happy about the situation or not. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of to lead to what their next action should be.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And one of the things we wanted to do in this discussion is have perspectives from all different types of industries. As Mathilde kind of mentioned in her keynote, we have customers spanning tons of different verticals, industries. We've got logistics, HR services, and B2B tech / ed tech here as well. So with that, I'll kick it over to Matt to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about Instructure.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I've been with Instructure for the past 7 years. I've worked on various different customer success teams while at Instructure, everything from our scale pooled model team to working on enterprise teams, and now currently working with our newly acquired products that come into the Instructure family. So we've been with Front since 2017, so it's been a good road. We've added a lot of different teams and departments and expanded our opportunity to collaborate. And the Instructure learning platform, what it is it is a growing ecosystem of tools, educational technology. So they're aimed at amplifying the power of teaching and elevating the learning process, ultimately leading to improved learning outcomes. Our flagship product is Canvas LMS, if you've heard of that one. That was founded in 2008, so it's been around for a little bit, and it's been widely adopted.
Awesome. And another thing we wanted to do is have kind of a range of tenures with Front. Obviously, Instructure has been with us for quite some time. And then on the other side, PuzzleHR, I think you guys started using Front about a year ago. So Joe would love to hear a little bit of intro to you, your teams at PuzzleHR, and the implementation for Front that you've got.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, PuzzleHR is a 3-year-old HR as a service provider. So our value prop to America's businesses, especially the small and medium-sized ones, is that we will take over your HR in whole or in part, the strategic, the tactical, from 1% to 100%. And so what comes with doing that and taking on HR work from companies all over the country is a lot of manual process. So I lead the technology and enablement team, and we get to do a lot of the automations and in bringing efficiency to those manual processes once we bring it into Puzzle. We use a lot of robotic process automation for that, or RPA, workflow automation. I have a couple of full stack developers that do a lot with APIs and things like that. So that's a lot of what my group does in support of PuzzleHR. Puzzle is my latest chapter in a 25-year career leading operations and technology teams. And as you said, we've been a Front client about a year and a half now, actually. We're coming up on 2 years this spring, and we're really leveraging it on the front line. The reason we liked Front, what drew us to it, what keeps us with it, is its ability to let our frontline providers collaborate around and get visibility to all of our client communications. So if someone's out one day and a client's emailing them, it no longer goes into just their personal inbox. The whole team can see it, and the supervisor can manage it and things like that. So we found that kind of collaborative ability to be a game changer for us, and the ease with which we can route communications to other people if someone's out of the office or on vacation is unprecedented. So those are just a general overview of how we're using it, and we're really excited about going further with AI.
Awesome. Well, love to hear that. And I think that theme of efficiency and focusing on helping your teams be as productive as possible is one that we hear not just at Front from a lot of our customers, what they're looking for when they come to the platform, but also when they're thinking about AI and how that might fit in with their team's workflows now, how it might impact their business over the coming years. So with that, would love to hear kind of high level how you're thinking about AI. Is it real? Is it hype? How are you thinking about it for your business? Even since the kind of conversation has evolved over the last year, since kind of the introduction of ChatGPT into the landscape, even in that time, things have changed so rapidly. Would love to hear kind of your most current thoughts on just the AI kind of trend and evolution in general. We'll change up the order here. Matt, how about we'll start with you?
Sure. Yeah. And it's changed so much over the past year. Looking back a year, I don't know if any of us would be even thinking about talking about using AI, using Front or other tools that we're using. So it's been good, but we've also been very cautious. We're very security conscious and privacy conscious at Instructure. So making sure that we do take a meaningful approach to AI is very important to us. We developed a governance policy, which I think is really, really helpful to understand. And this is something that's available on our website, but it allows us to approach AI with intention. So when we apply AI, we try to do so in a responsible way, a way that's ethical. It's also transparent, fair, and inclusive. And again, respect to privacy is very important, especially being in educational technology, student data, that type of information. We do need to be extra cautious. The core component of that is we don't believe that AI should be a replacement for customer experience. And within my role, we value the human element. That's one of the big reasons we started with Front in the first place, is making sure that we were not losing touch with our customer base and not turning them into a number or a ticket, that we kept that personalization. So AI augmenting the decision-making process and not replacing it has definitely been a critical component for us. And then in terms of customer success specifically, because that's more my wheelhouse, there's a lot of excitement around this in terms of administrative tasks being alleviated from our teams. Just think about the amount of time spent note-taking, composing emails, writing and sharing drafts, and, trying to gather information for an escalation for an executive. Like, there are just so many reasons why we need to spend meaningful time collecting information and allowing AI to supplement that and have our teams spending more time building meaningful connections than summarizing information for internal escalations or writing up responses that could easily be done by AI now. That's where we're seeing the most benefit there, is just taking that stress off the employee of doing administrative work and allowing them to be more creative in their work and have a better and deeper connection with our customer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of what you said really resonates in terms of, I think when you hear about AI, like in the media, it's this idea of everyone's job will be replaced, everything's going to become a bot. And I think when we actually talk to customers, similar to how you guys are approaching it, it's not about automating away the interaction with the customer. It's how can we use AI to up-level the team, make them more efficient, make them more productive so that they're spending that more valuable time that's personal human time with the customer, not totally automating that entire interaction away to AI. So super interesting to hear. Joe, I know that kind of resonated with some of what you were saying in your intro, so I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, really well said, Matt. I think our companies share a lot of the same philosophies. And Sarah, to your question, I think we all agree that AI is here to stay. It's real. Right now in the early innings, it has all the hype earmarks of a frenzy, actually, with lots of controversy and speculation and hype around both the positive and the negative aspects. As excited as I am about it personally, being in the HR industry with significant compliance and regulatory and privacy burden, we've also opted not to rush in, and we're weaving AI into our internal and client-facing business and solutions in very measured, deliberate, and thoughtful steps. We're the way we look at it is we're going to make our bets and investments in AI to measure it with our understanding of the risks and limitations of it at any given time. So, some of the early toe in the water things that we've done in my group and across Puzzle are, we're using GitHub Copilot for code creation and review and things like that. We're using the benefits of meeting summaries and platforms like Zoom and Teams. And then, of course, Front's magic wand on our Frontlines. Those our pioneer group, who I'll speak about a little later, who's used it, are just in love with it. What it is doing for their efficiency and the quality of their communications is unprecedented. So, those are three kind of early uses of it that we're taking, and we'll increase our usage and how much we embed it in everything we do as we understand it more and as it evolves. I think similar to Matt, when GPT hit at the end of November, I immediately released educational content so people knew what it was, so they weren't just hearing it through headlines. They knew the kind of what it does, what it can't do, the kind of the risks and the rewards of it. We released a specific policy. We released specific instructions for use and guardrails governing the use of any generative AI tools like GPT, so that we can really mitigate and manage our downside risk as a company, especially in this time when everybody thinks they know what it is, but very few people can even define what AI is accurately. So it's a precarious time, I think, and you got to put those guardrails and policies in place. And our group has really embraced them. We wrote them in such a way that it wasn't just a work content. This was stuff we told them to take home and share with their families and friends too, so that there are more informed users of this exciting technology. I expect the landscape will evolve extremely quickly, and probably in just a few years, we'll be looking, and regarding ChatGPT like we regard a fax machine today. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to follow something like Moore's Law. It's going to get a lot more powerful and a lot less expensive, and we'll set up the ethical guardrails. I think we have it with every technology we've ever had as a human race, including nuclear technology. So. In summary, we're playing the long game of AI. We're not rushing, and we're balancing our learning with execution and strategy in the early innings.
Yeah. I think, to your point on even getting clarity on what it is, what it can do, I think we use the word hype here. There is so much hype around it. Shifting gears to Todd, I think that is nowhere more true than in the logistics industry in terms of this idea that I think has been floating around for years of, one day every single thing on the highway will be autonomous, people won't even need to be involved anymore. Like, that's obviously not true, or not true in any kind of near to medium term time horizon. So super curious for your perspective on how AI is actually impacting the logistics industry today, and what you think, that kind of holds for the future there.
Yeah, I'll echo what Matt and Joe were stating about. We're taking the approach that, we're leveraging AI in order to take away the mundane, the repeatable, or the things that just happen. Yeah, the reps have to do every single day, and it takes away from them servicing the customers. So I think AI is real. I don't think that it does the work for us. We still have to build the models. We still have to build the structure. So the approach we're taking is twofold. The LCs, logistics coordinators, spend a lot of time doing the initial setup of a customer's request, right? So that's identifying a solution. So we've built a AI model, a learning model that looks back at history and says, okay, between these 2 points, this is what we do. And then it selects the airline. And then AI, we have a model built now to book the shipment with the carrier, right? So this is a very step-by-step process where the reps had to do it hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, right? In cumulative. And so we're having the AI book with the airlines, bring that back to our systems. So then the reps can then focus on customer inquiries or assisting customers instead of those mundane tasks. So our approach has been to take AI and try to augment what the front lines do, so they could focus on customer relationships and dealing with exceptions. And I think that's been our approach. It's not the AI doesn't think for you. It does sort of in the learning model. If you teach it in a model to make decisions, that's one thing. But a customer being irate and needing something out of the box, you're going to need a person for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think getting kind of clear to your point on like what makes sense for my team today, what makes sense in the future is super important. You all kind of alluded to this in your intros, but would love to hear a little bit more on how your teams are leveraging the kind of first two features that we actually announced earlier this year. That's for all of you joining us, AI, summarize with AI and compose with AI, meaning that you can get an instant one-click summary of the conversation or get kind of AI assistance in your draft. You all alluded to this a little bit in your intros, but would love to hear kind of more tactically how your teams are starting to leverage this technology. I think I'm keeping my round robin straight in my head. So Joe, I think we'll start with you on this one. Don't think you've gone first yet.
Okay. Yeah, we like I think probably is true for every company on this call. Our front lines are very busy people in the day-to-day. So when we train them on something new, we kind of first release it to a group of pioneers. We call them our pioneer groups. We do a soft launch, and they're the ones who we really meet with, and they dive in because they're very curious, and they will grab and run any new tool we give them. And they have realized some very exciting communication quality and efficiency results when using the compose and the summarize features, which we are super excited to bring to everyone else in just a couple of weeks when we train our entire front lines. And what we're doing is we're taking what our users have reported, and the way they describe it is it's like having a personal scribe assistant, and it's especially useful when for our people for whom English is not their first language. It writes beautiful emails from just a few bullet points. Sometimes that's what they'll do. They'll just write a few bullet points, and then they'll hit the magic wand, and it composes an email that they had to just quickly review for accuracy. They can change the tone on it. They love that part of it because they have different relationships from the very professional to the friendly end of the spectrum with some of their clients, and they can change accordingly. Some of them, just to give you a stat, some of them have reported an efficiency gain of 2 hours in some days of just in their email processing. They've gotten 2 hours better because some of them they know what they want to say, but they just don't know how to elaborate on it and get it down on paper in a perfect way. So again, they put the bullets down, and the magic wand writes the rest, which is just has been a game changer for them. They also, this is really interesting. So we all have those days when we're working with clients or colleagues or someone, and you get frustrated. And sometimes that tone comes through in your responses via email. They're either too curt, or the tone is very harsh. They love the fact that when they're frustrated, again, they can make the bullet points, and Front will make a perfect frustration-free email that is consistent every time in its tone and its professionalism. So I thought that was a really cool part of what came out of our focus group with the pioneers. And I mean, we really have seen that this is going to significantly increase communication quality, while at the very same time reducing the email daily burden on our team. And you can't do better than that. Less work and better output, and more consistency as we scale the business. So the other thing I'll mention is that I think the sentiment analysis has a lot of potential as well. The ability for it to summarize a string and comment on sentiment and things like that is another game changer, and I don't even think we're scratching the surface on that one yet.
Yeah, I love that example, not only of thinking about how we can support folks maybe who are working in English when it's not their native language, to kind of ease that kind of mental translation load. But I love the example of the frustration-free email, of thinking like AI can actually help us smooth out these very human tendencies that we all have for frustration at work. So love to hear that.
Yeah,
Todd,
in case you want to name it, Sarah, I'm just sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our pioneer group calls that the sanitizing function.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd, I think your teams are using it in a similar way, so I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, for sure. I think one good example I have is we have a long-term team member who, she's a rock star, right? She's very productive. She knows the business. She's very, just right on point. The one knock, I think, is that her communication skills in writing are abrupt. They're not very customer friendly. And I was really happy to see when I looked at the outputs of who was using the compose function. She was top of the list. So I talked to her about it, and she loves it. She absolutely loves the fact that she can write the email just like she did before and hit the compose, and it gives this nice, perfect response back to the customer. So just throw that anecdote out there. It's very good. And so a lot of the team members like it for that, for sure, to echo what Joe was saying. But I get, for us, the complexity of some of the things that happen with our email chains, especially with the aviation industry, moving shipments cross borders, invoices for international travel. You've got perhaps dangerous goods documentation, specifics on the pickups, and a lot of that gets lost in translation as that email chain goes, right? So that summary function, for me, for my teams, I think the feedback I've gotten is that is probably one of the best updates we've had in the Front application in a long time. So the team loves Front. That's just one more thing that I think that they absolutely love about the AI.
Love to hear that. Always trying to add more value. And as we're talking, I'm realizing we got to rebrand Compose with AI to like sanity check or something. It sounds like that seems to be a theme of kind of making sure that everything that's going out is keeping the brand voice and tone that everyone's looking for. So love to hear both of those examples. Matt, we'll wrap up with your team.
Yeah, and Todd and Joe, you did a great job highlighting some of those use cases that are very similar to ours, the composition, the assistance there, kind of the double check, having another voice to look at your stuff, especially in a very remote friendly world. You don't have that team of people sitting around the table to kind of bounce ideas off of. It gives you another person to kind of elaborate with. So that's been really helpful for us as well. I think a couple of other use cases that we've run into are when we have a lengthy chain that you get tagged into. For example, you raise it with another teammate for assistance, or maybe they're out of office and you need to summarize what had happened in an email chain of 20 emails back and forth, or you're bringing a manager in to escalate an issue that needs to be raised. Using that summarize function has saved a tremendous amount of time for us, because you click the button, gives you nice bullet points. Here's what the chain was about. Joe, you talked about sentiment score. Like, it's nice to get some of those quick at a glance insights, and I can always go back and double check by reading through the thread, but it gives me a great quick overview of the situation so I can get more done in my day. If I only have so much time to look through this, give me the highlights, and it's been incredible. Another interesting use case that we have, being global, we have people in other regions. Sometimes we do get emails from customers in other languages. And when some of that escalation occurs, it might be going from a native speaker to someone in our team who's not, or doesn't even speak the language at all. So being able to click that button to get the summary of what are they talking about, and not having to go out to Google Translate and try to figure out what's going on, or loop in other people and spend their time in addition to yours, has been amazing to just quick at a glance, tell me what's going on. I can give my advice, and then we can move on from there. But at the end of the day, it's the time saving, and it's the, initial drafting when we're writing messages, getting those ideas. And if we do need to put kind of a spin on things, like Todd and Joe were talking about, when things may be heated or difficult conversations are occurring, it's really helpful to just stimulate some additional ideas and thoughts and verbiage if you need a little more empathy or you need a little more professionalism. So it's been great to supplement all the good things that we're already doing. But a huge thing for us is also the time savings at a management level, in addition to those individual contributor benefits of composition.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear translations come up, both on the compose side with Joe's team, and then on the kind of summarization side with your team. It's not something you think about with AI. Like, it's not like translate and summarize, or translate and compose, but to have that baked in is super useful. And similarly, tons of our customers, the reason they come to Front is because they do have these more complex kind of escalation workflows, as Mathilde mentioned in the keynote, and having that quick summarization when you're hitting those different breakpoints in your process is super useful. So awesome to hear. I'm going to start with, I think, Joe on this. You're the pioneer group. I know you guys have a really strong strategy for these internal rollouts. So would love to hear how you think about adoption of new features like AI or new technologies for your team more broadly. So we'll start with Joe, and then would love to hear how this differs, or other strategies that you have in your other organizations. So Joe.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, we tend to, when we're rolling out a new technology or something like that, we have, typically my tech team will test it initially, very briefly. When something is ready to go out to the front lines, we assemble this pioneer team, and we bring them together. We train them very quickly, but it's very much with the knowledge that they're going to go and experiment with it, and they are going to bring back to us the things that will resonate the most impact-wise with their peers on the front line. So it's like a peer pioneer group. So the training gets a lot of credibility because everyone knows it's created in collaboration with these pioneers who are peers of the larger audience. And part of the campaigns are often, we will have them do recorded testimonials for what they really like. So for instance, the Front Magic Wand, we have a few of them who've made, using Loom, they make videos, and that becomes part of the training. So if I'm on the front lines, why should I listen and adopt this training? Wow, because I know those people, they're my peers, they do the same job, and they're saying this is really worth my time. So from there, we distill out kind of a prioritized list of things that balance effort with impact. Because like all companies, frontliners are busy. So you gotta minimize the time you take them off the phones or behind the scenes or whatever. So we do a progressive approach. We take some of the coolest stuff, and that's what we'll train on first with the testimonials and everything, and their peers are part of the training process. And then that kind of sets the hook, and then we'll roll out additional training later. But what we find is if we do a good enough job with that first one and the first cool things about, say, the Front AI, the Magic Wand, they'll run with it, and they'll teach themselves as a group and share and things like that, because we'll often make a social channel internally on best practices, tips and tricks. You can post any questions you have, like, hey, how do you do this, right? How do you summarize? How do you tell this to make an email shorter, right? So a lot of the time, once you get that flywheel spinning, we find the group a lot of times self-trained. So we also, I think one of the important things we do is, because in any population, you can have a subset of people who are intimidated by technology. They don't consider themselves or brand themselves as technology people. They can get intimidated. We don't use the jargon. Like when we roll this out, we're not going to use AI. We're probably not going to phrase it that way. We're just going to say, you're using Front. We're going to show you how to get next level benefits for very little effort. You know, when we're doing RPA and we're releasing bots to the front lines that eliminate manual work, we don't call them bots, because bots can land in people's heads in different ways. It can be, you know, an incendiary term, an intimidating term, a scary term, like you said, Sarah, earlier. Oh my gosh, they're going to take the bot's taking my job. So those are just a few of the things that we do, but I think the biggest thing we get is the lift in credibility, because this training, when it comes out, yes, our learning team packages it and delivers most of it, but in participation with the peers who have walked the path first, distilled out the best stuff to train on, that'll have the most impact and relevance, and then they're part of the delivery.
I love to hear the kind of robust system that you guys have refined internally. It was making me laugh to myself, because a lot of what you're doing is honestly like the craft of product marketing, talking to customers, getting their feedback, understanding what's going to resonate and what kind of actual value we're driving, just going to the next level of doing that internally and having that additional credibility of their direct peers using this functionality and saying, like, this is how it's helping me. Here's how I think it can help you. I think that sense of trust and pilot programming is really awesome to hear. Todd, would love to hear how you're approaching things at MNX.
Yeah, it's a very similar approach. We start with a target group, right? We start with a target group. We go in, we make them the experts. We have a pretty good training and development team that work hand in hand. The training and development team has worked with most of our front lines since the day they were hired. So they're very trusted and they know their stuff. So we're pretty fortunate to have them as the team. But we roll out training. In part of that training, we always explain to them very clearly why this is a benefit to them, right? How this is going to make their job better. I think that's very important to lay out from the very beginning. And then we institute the training, right? And where we can, we have the training team actually administer that training so that they can answer those questions in real time. And again, you know, the training team for us is a very trusted group. So that it helps to get adoption from the team. Then we measure adoption, right? And so we measure adoption, we identify if there's resistance to adoption, and we figure out, you know, what that resistance is or what's causing that resistance, and we try to clear those roadblocks. If needed, then we go through training again until we get to full adoption. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
Awesome. Great to hear. I am hearing in real time, we're getting a ton of questions, so I want to make sure we have time for them. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you on this one. And then we've got one more kind of group question for the panel, and then we'll head into our Q&A with the audience. So Matt, how are you guys thinking about this at Instructure?
Yeah, perfect. And I'll keep it brief. The enablement efforts, I think, are wonderful. We do a lot of the same there in terms of that rollout plan and the adoption strategies. One other thing to add to this is we have the luxury of being an educational technology platform. So we have access to a learning management system, and being able to use those tools and roll that out to people and share information and enable new hires. Like those are core functions of our company, is being able to provide that learning. And so we do try to apply that to ourselves as well. We do a lot of professional development internally, and we also put a lot of trust and autonomy in our team to be able to choose what's right for them in what situations, and allowing them to kind of pick and choose, you know, what's going to benefit them based on the product they're working on, the segment they're serving, or any other internal functions that they're supporting.
Awesome. Yeah, super helpful to hear these kind of actionable strategies. It's obviously something we talk to customers all the time about, whether it's about rolling out Front internally or adopting new features, AI being a huge one that, you know, as we've all kind of hit on, can have these really loaded connotations. So super helpful to hear. Last kind of question for all of you. I think you've all touched on this a little bit, but would love to hear before we shift into Q&A, just where you kind of see AI going from here. I know you talked about this a little bit in the intro, but just to wrap up, would love to hear what your bets would be for the next 1 to 2 years for each of your teams. I've totally lost my order. Now I'm just going down in my Zoom order. So we'll go with Todd.
Yeah, so over the next 1 to 2 years, we will be working on identifying and building a solution for the things that take time that don't add value to our customers, right? So anything that our LCs, our billing teams, our finance teams that do on a day-to-day basis that is sucking up time that can be handled through RPA or some other type of AI. Those are the things that we're working to identify and take action with.
Awesome. Yeah, I think something we've heard a lot today about just this idea of like automating what you can, figuring out where can my team actually add value, what's a valuable use of their time, and then kind of automating, including with AI, the rest of that process. So super aligned. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's twofold for us. So first and foremost, I hope that we see AI enhancing the learning environment and making education more accessible for all students. And that pertains to educational technology, but also just more globally, allowing more people to learn more effectively and quicker. In the world of customer experience, I think this will have a tremendous impact on our ability to scale as organizations. And this has been a huge theme. And that was one of the main primary reasons of us beginning to work with Front, was to allow us to scale, and having a pooled model customer success approach was just being able to work together in a more efficient manner. With our customer success team, we work so much with customers to provide them with information that's out there that they can find on their own, and that information being documented in places like our community. I think that is a place where customers, hopefully in the future, will be able to have that surfaced to them in their time of need, as opposed to them having to go back out. So taking the burden off the customer to help themselves. And I see the future of AI really stepping in to fill a void for us, where when a customer has an issue or a question or a problem, we could foresee that issue before it becomes an issue and help self-serve that up to them, whether it be through some form of human interaction or actually a more in-depth integration within our actual products.
Yeah, that really resonates. Matilda kind of had that example of, we all think about bot interactions in the past, kind of the proverbial like phone tree, or just like speak to a representative, you just want to get through to a human. And I think as kind of technology is actually able to deliver these really high quality experiences in an automated way, sometimes you just are looking for an instant answer. You don't need to talk to a person. I'm just looking for my information. And if I can get a great answer in a really positive experience, that's great. That's not necessarily better or worse than talking to a human. So I think thinking about, what needs to be that kind of human to human interaction, what can be a really positive, but also really efficient kind of self-serve interaction is super interesting, and definitely something that we're thinking here about a lot as we make further investments in things like knowledge base, our chatbots, et cetera. So Joe, we'll wrap up with you before we dive into some questions.
Sure. Not much I could add. Great job, guys. I think I see AI, generative AI, as it's an evolutionary step. I don't see it as something that's brand new that just big banged into existence. I think it's the next evolutionary step out after internet search, what Google did back in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is the next step. And I think it's just one more step on the road that eliminates the need for us humans to keep facts between our ears. We didn't used to have alternatives for that decades ago. Memorization and getting it in your head was how you built expertise. Now I think we're seeing the whole landscape shift to the facts do not need to be in your head anymore. So I think with that shift, the speed to competency of new reps should drastically increase. Because we're not going to need them to memorize as much as they used to have to, because we didn't have alternatives. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about, and I think it'll do that. And I think the AI will increase our ability, and it'll move the boundary, I think, between self-service and human support. And as it shifts, I think the AI will handle more and more of the fact base, like you said, Sarah, in a very efficient way, which it hasn't always done, which is why everybody just wants to get to a human, because it can be clunky and kludgy. But I think as it gets better, it'll handle the fact-based support. And as the other gentleman said, the humans are going to be needed to handle any with nuance, creativity, judgment, personality, things like that. All of those other elements that go into a great customer experience that the AI is not going to be able to replicate. And the other thing I think I'm really excited about is I think it's going to improve service operations ability to see around corners. It's going to get much more predictive. It's going to approach the place where it'll know that a client's having a problem before the client realizes they're having a problem, and it'll enable proactive service and things like that, just for the evolution of its algorithms and things like that. So, I mean, in general, I think service is going to drastically improve through the AI mechanisms and the evolution of as we continue to train them on larger and larger, more sophisticated models.
Yeah, I love that. Almost just thinking about AI as like another tool in the arsenal, another way we can make teams more efficient, kind of help them resolve those customer conversations, like demystifying it a little bit almost. That it's just, for us, it's another feature in front, but it's just another tool, another type of software, another type of solution that teams have at their disposal. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all three of you, for kind of the prepared content here. We're going to, in this last 5 minutes, shift to some Q&A from the audience. I've got my helper sending me through some questions here. She's helping triage in Zoom. This first one kind of directly related to what we were just talking about. So maybe Joe, I'll ping this up to you, but if anyone has thoughts, definitely feel free to jump in. It sounds like you all see AI's biggest value as augmenting your team's workflow rather than replacing people. Do your teams see it the same way? Do they have any anxiety about bringing in AI and what it means for their future? So I think kind of, how is the messaging and kind of mindset that all of you are taking to this actually resonating with your teams? Maybe Joe, I'll start with you.
Yeah, we definitely see it that way. This isn't taking away any jobs. This is making people much better at their jobs and making them on that commute home from work or I guess in the remote era when they're shutting down for the day. It's making them happier employees because they can do better work with less effort. And that's how we're positioning all of our flavors of AI, whether it's in front, whether it's RPA. We are just, using it very surgically to remove the manual work that people don't like doing anyway. It's a part of the job that everybody says they don't like, the repetitive, mundane, doesn't call on their creativity or anything. And so we've already seen it. We've already seen in some of our CSAT scores where we are removing manual work. Our reps have more time now to delight clients and to just sometimes they're now for the first time, they even have time to proactively call and check in on a client, where before service was always reactive. When you free up this much time, you can do things that you never did before. And I think it's tools like Fronts AI that are going to help us do that and get there. So yeah, we don't see this replacing jobs anytime soon. And all of our early returns, we're a young company, but in the last 2 years, the RPA we've released, the front tools like this, where we release it, we see happier employees.
Love to hear that. Todd or Matt, anything to add on how kind of this messaging that it's not about replacing jobs, it's about augmenting kind of your workflow. How is that resonating with your teams? Anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely some consternation with the team, right? They're very worried about that very scenario. I think it's important to have open conversations, which we do. For me, the greatest benefit is, one, you can focus on the customer. Two, and I think Matt talked about it earlier, scalability, right? So we are a very unique, specialized company, right? That what we do is very, I've got 10 shipments, I've got to create solutions for 10 shipments, right? If I can have AI leverage that and I can handle 10 shipments today, but what happens tomorrow when the customer gives us 50 shipments, right? Is pointing out that the real benefit for them and for the company is to become more scalable, right? So that I can handle, if I get an influx of double the volume today, I can't double my number of people, right? But if I have AI, if I'm leveraging AI to handle some of those time consuming things, that's our main goal, right? Is become scalable. and having those open conversations with the team. I don't think there's any getting around it, and I don't think you should hide from it. You should have those open and honest conversations.
Matt?
Yeah, you said great. I was just going to hammer home scalability. Like that is the name of the game for us in customer success specifically. We do have the benefit of being very proactive, but you get to the point where you have a difficult time taking on more and more customers. So again, Todd, scalability, 100%. That's our biggest benefit there. It's a help, not a hindrance to our work.
We've got one more, or we've kind of got a couple that I'm going to combine into one question. Mainly just wondering, kind of, do you guys see a path towards completely automating email answering or like deflecting some of those more complex questions, considering that right now, maybe those models aren't totally accurate. They may not have like a predictive quality that they can rely on. Maybe Matt, I'll kind of pivot to you since you talked about this a good bit in terms of how your team is thinking about deflection versus kind of what needs human interaction. How do you know when something is ready to be automated, or how do you identify those areas that could be candidates for deflection or self-service?
Yeah, I will say there's plenty of opportunity for low-hanging fruit where you know the answer every time it comes in. And that's where we're really looking forward to enhanced depth of ability to tap into our knowledge bases and our community information that's out there, because that's what's really going to take us to the next level. Yeah, I think that making sure that we are being personal and not looking at this in any form as a replacement to the human thoughts, because our businesses are only getting more complex. All of us, our businesses will change and adapt, and AI will have to mutate along with that. But with the speed that our company changes, having formulated canned responses replacing the human element of things isn't even an option, because we do need to make sure we're inputting a strategic partnership with our customers, not just giving them canned responses.
Awesome. Joe or Todd, any quick thoughts? I'll do some very rapid fire wrap ups on some other questions that have come in, but any thoughts from either of you on how you identify what could be these candidates for kind of AI automation in the future?
You know, with just one tangential thing that came to mind, I think, you know, if we're talking about getting to the place where we can automate all email responses, I think that it's a spectrum, and I think we're definitely going to travel along it. Just like even with Google in the last several years, you saw it go to, if I completely botch what I put in the Google search bar, it'll say, did you really mean this? Because that's what I'm showing you. And I think those types of advancements are going to happen here too. So I think there will be just an increasing percentage of the things that can be fully automated. I don't know that anytime soon we're going to see an automation of all email and things like that, but it's just going to be an evolutionary stepped progression towards it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Todd, anything to add?
I feel the same way. Specific to our organization and what we do, it's not like we're a huge company that has a bunch of customers that have the same product, right? We're very specialized, and so the majority of the inquiries that come into us are not something that I think that we can utilize AI to do an auto response on.
Great. Yeah, we definitely, see that spectrum as well here. Very much varies business to business, size of business, by industry, even by, again, kind of using that word predictive, like how predictive an inbound inquiry is going to be or how standardized. So definitely agreed on the spectrum approach. Couple rapid fire questions. We got a lot of questions about just availability of different features. So I'm going to touch on that briefly. For the AI summarize and compose functionality that we've been talking about here today, that is already live in product. Summarize being available on our latest growth, scale, and premier plans. Compose with AI being available on scale and premier only. For the features mentioned in the keynote that are coming soon, AI answers for chatbot, AI tagging to automate workflows. Those are both in very limited betas at the moment, but we will have a general Frontlines beta form that we'll share out in the community. That'll be my next topic, but we'll share that beta form out. So anyone who's interested in getting access to any future AI features or any of the other features that were touched on in the keynote in Maggie's roadmap preview, we'll have a way for you to kind of raise your hands to get into those beta programs. And we're adding customers as quickly as we can. So once once you kind of submitted that interest, we'll be able to follow up with you when there's an opportunity to try out those features. And then of course, aiming for a general release for all customers in the coming months. As well, a couple of questions kind of as we got into the more like the deflection and self-serve topic, a couple questions about chatbots and knowledge base. Those are available now in front, again, for our latest pricing plan. So range of functionality across plans, you can check those out in product. And if you're having any trouble getting access, you can email into accountservices@front.com or to just reach out to our support team and they can kind of escalate internally as needed. And then finally, we did have a lot of questions we couldn't get to, but I think it was really worthwhile to have these more in-depth discussions. So if there's any questions that we didn't get to touch on that you would love to get a clear answer to, head over to community.front.com to our Frontlines forum. You can post your question there and we'll follow up with you there. Or again, feel free to reach out to our teams or your relationship manager if there's one assigned to your account. So with that, I know we're already over time. We could keep going, but want to just wrap up here and thank you so much to our panelists. It was really awesome to hear about how your teams are leveraging Front, how you're thinking about and actually rolling out AI in your organizations and just where you see this kind of, I hate to use the word trend, but this technology going from here. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you everyone who's dialed in right now for joining and really great questions from everyone. So appreciate it. And we'll stop here and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep.